Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first. I'm a setting sun, but I'll never run. I'm a dead man walking. I'm a dead man walking. I will stay and fight as long as I'm alive. I'm a dead man walking. I'm a dead man walking. Till I die. And kill till I die.
The Madness Comic Network and Comic Related Madness proudly presents Madness Tuesday Morning Brew. Tune in to our content on Comic Talk with Pops Van Zandt on YouTube.
Good morning, everybody. It's Laurie Calcaterra, writer, creator, Path of the Pale Writer, your hostess with the mostest on the Tuesday Morning Brew. And I'm excited to be here today. Happy Valentine's Day. I wore pink. Yeah, this is probably the only time you'll see me in pink because I hate pink. But we wear pink on Wednesdays, doesn't fly with me. So we're here on Tuesday with Valentine's Day wearing pink. Yeah, it is what it is. Some updates. Path of the Pale Writer, we're trucking along. We're in the queue for all the books to be printed. I think the first things start coming out on Wednesday. So McLean McGuire, who's over at Charter, always make sure everything looks nice before they get to me. So I appreciate him. McLean McGuire, shout out to you today. Thank you for everything you do to help us. So we should start seeing some books coming out soon. We are starting filming for a short film for issue number 3 this week. In fact, we're going to think tonight and tomorrow we're going to get, I'm going to get the drone out. So we're going to have some drone shots. It's going to be cool. And then, there's quite a few people that are shooting from at home and then sending, film to me to be edited. So if you are interested in being in that short film, you need to let me know ASAP so I can get you the instructions. There's a shot list that I need you to shoot certain things so that way it can be included in the film. Other than that, I've been planning all sorts of stuff. The Kickstarter for 3 has already been pre-approved. So we're in pre-launch status. I dropped the link in the comments. You guys are welcome to hop on there and you just click the green button. And all that you're signing up for is to be notified when we do launch. I'm tentatively planning for either the first or second week of March, depending on when I get the books. I'm not going to launch until we fulfill issue number 2. I want everybody to have their books and be excited, right? Because at the end of 2, I leave you hanging like I always do. So you'll want to know what happens in 3. So then we'll go right into it and we'll start crowdfunding. And yeah, we got hot sauce. We got surprise pledges that are really cool. The people that have seen them are all excited. I got some new variant covers, new artists involved. I'm pumped, you guys. I mean, I'm itching because we haven't done a Kickstarter since October? So I'm ready. Let's go. Let's tackle it, right? And then you'll see me on everybody else's show because that's what happens. So one thing I did want to say is make sure you kiss your loved ones. Life has been reminding me that life is not guaranteed. Could be today, tomorrow, any day. I lost some friends of mine too, in fact, in the last month. So kiss your loved ones and just remind them that they're important to you because you never know. Moving on from that topic, I'm excited today to have two guests on, two for the price of one. And guess what? They love comics and they love martial arts. So I'm been waiting for this one because we love to nerd out about martial arts on my show. And anytime I get someone that actually knows some martial arts, it's great. But when you get people that like know the martial art that I do, because it's such an offshoot, it's kind of not really well known. That makes me even more excited because they know some of the same people that I do. So I'm going to start bringing some people in. Our first guest, of course, is Kurtis Fujita. If you've been on The Madness, you've seen this man. He's been doing the right thing and getting his name out there so people can start backing his book, which is live on Kickstarter right now, Shadow Ghosts. This was awesome. I had a great time reading this, by the way. So I felt really lucky that I got an advanced copy.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. And then let me bring in our other guest, your partner in crime, Patrick Lugo. Hello, sir.
Hello, Laurie. So glad to be. I'm doing well. So glad to be here.
Good. I'm so happy to have you guys on the show. I've been seeing you guys doing like the round on the madness on all the other shows, and I'm like, they need to be on my show. And it's my turn. And like, just, it's Valentine's Day, so it worked perfect.
Yeah, we were waiting for the perfect moment.
Exactly. And it's today, people. It's today. So we're going to have some fun. So you both have comics on Kickstarter right now, and they're both about martial arts in their own way, which is really exciting. So who wants to flip a coin and see who goes first?
I'll give it to Patrick.
Okay, Patrick.
Yeah.
So first of all, tell us about yourself. You're a writer, creator. Are you also doing the art in your comic? Like, tell us about you, team.
So I'm Patrick Lugo, author, illustrator, and comic creator from everything from the thumbnails to the lettering to the cover design. I spent about the past 2.5 decades as the art director for Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, producing hundreds and hundreds of issues devoted to traditional Chinese martial arts. And so that allowed me to really just focus on good sequential art, right? Because even though I wasn't drawing them, I was in charge of every one of those step-by-step, this is how you defend yourself from an attacker article layout that would appear in these magazines. So I had this unique option to really explore how to do sequential storytelling while perfecting my illustration skills elsewhere.
Yeah. For other people that do martial arts, we're all familiar with the Kung Fu magazine. One of the schools I trained at Royal Oak, Michigan for a while, my buddy owns it, and he papered the whole bathroom with the covers. We collect those. We know, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And I think illustrating self-defense moves and how they function in 2D is so difficult. You know what I mean? To be able to communicate to someone who maybe doesn't have that background to try and understand, okay, these are the steps. This is how the moves are performed. Elbow needs to be here. Your intention is here. I think all comic book creators would benefit from that because when they're writing action, they're always like, it's a fight. I'll just throw some things around and toss a table and we're done. It's no. Especially with writers like us, where it's my fights are so specific and so detailed to the point where sometimes the artists, not my artists, but other artists have been I can't do that. That's too intimidating. You know what I mean? What's a backhand speed punch? They don't know.
Totally. Well, what's also fascinating is that working with, these, some of the best martial artists, and trying to explain to them that we're going to try and do a photo spread, So they have to break down their movements one at a time. And often they don't understand. And they're like, these things happen at once. You don't just punch and block. You punch and block and step so that you're ready for the next thing. And it would always be this interesting game to see who kind of could make that equation in their head. Oh, I get it, that we're breaking this up for the magazine. And that's slightly different than actually teaching the technique in person.
Sometimes, it's like bridging the gap between the two, you know? So it's like you have to explain to the artist what the moves mean, but you also have to get the martial artist to be able to put it in a way that other people can understand it.
Right. And sometimes it's to slow. Some of these masters have just spent their whole life learning how to be fast, and we're trying to get them to slow down so the camera can capture it.
Right. I think it happened in the Mulan movie. It was like, I think Donnie. Who was the guy that did the sword work? He was going so fast, they actually asked him to go 50% because they weren't able to capture all the cool stuff that he was doing because it was just too fast. And they were like, dude, that's really amazing. Can you slow it down? And he was like, what? You want me to slow down? And like, usually they ask me to speed up. They're like, no, we can't. It's too fast. Like, it's just so funny. But you would think, like, as an instructor or a master who's been teaching for a long time, that they would be able to break down the movements so that way people could understand, because that's what they've been doing, right, in order to teach people in person.
Well, I mean, an interesting dynamic is that because of the reputation of Kung Fu Magazine, a lot of these masters would show up kind of eager to prove their Kung Fu.
Man, and that's like all martial arts.
Right. But sometimes, sometimes we're trying to do a photo shoot and we're like, just hold that position. And, when I first started working there, I was a little more gung-ho, so I was willing to jump in front of the camera and take those licks, Yeah. And I mean, I learned as you learn a ton just by having that hand-to-hand contact. So, I would absorb so much through osmosis, working with these masters. But, some of that absorption was also, bruises and a little bit of pain. So once I worked my way up the ranks, we always made sure we had other workers in the room, or we would ask the masters to bring their students, right? And that's how I met Kurtis, was him coming as a part of his master's entourage to the studios. So that we could, we were like, oh, finally, this master has finally deemed to come out of Chinatown to come to the studio, and we're all excited. And he rolls in with this whole crew, and some of them, like Kurtis, they're sporting their cameras, which are as nice, if not nicer, than the ones that we have in the studio. And we're like, oh well, let's just do this thing. We have pictures to take, we have video to film, and it can get a little wild, because you have lessons, you have people being
very enthusiastic.
Oh yeah, it's a completely special thing, but it really helped me kind of develop an eye for the martial arts in general, but also for like a lot of the things that are often overlooked in martial arts, a lot of the details that really differentiate like mastery or discipline or style. And so that's something that I've always like tried to infuse in my art too, right? So part of my trick for helping to break the ice would be to ask the masters different stories about their specific martial art. We had our editor and our writer and our translator trying to get the real information from them. So I would try and ask them more stories about like their creation mythology. What's the mythology behind the origins of their martial arts? And try to ask them questions that were a little unorthodox, just to get them thinking differently and to get their guard down, to let them know that I've done some reading. I have a few ideas of how some of this philosophical component works. So let's look at that in between the photos. And then that's kind of where I would jot down notes, write little comics. I'd sometimes draw a little sketch of the master in my sketchbook, and then they'd look over, and that would anything, because oftentimes we didn't have the common language. Oftentimes we were working through a translator. So anything to help break that ice helped for the photo shoot, But a lot of those tricks also helped me as an artist because I'd be sketching their anatomy and sketching their posture while they did their moves, or sketching their faces and really learning like the nuances of what, how do you draw that eye that differentiates a Caucasian eye from an Asian eye without making it look like a stereotype.
Right.
So little details like that just kept bubbling up, and then the chance to put that into one comprehensive comic book has been my project for about as long, honestly, as I've been working for the magazine.
So how long is that?
So my comic strip first saw print in the pages of Kung Fu magazine, right? Like before anything else, once I proved my worth, they asked me, okay, what do you want as a raise? And I basically said, give me the back page. I want to do a comic in the back page, and I promise people will love it. And they said, yeah. And it turned out people liked it. I'd get fan mail. I'd get like reader requests and stuff. And so the first chapter, the first episode was like in December of 1997.
Okay.
Right. And so these were just small little one-page comics that was kind of, they were more like Q&A. Like the characters would walk around and they'd encounter something, and then the comic would explain, this is why you paint the eyes on a lion last, so that it doesn't eat you. Or this is why when you're painting a Chinese scroll and it has calligraphy and it has a dragon, you paint the eyes last so that it doesn't ruin the rest of the painting. Like weird little things. I shouldn't say weird because they were weird to me at the time. But there were just these details that I really wanted to capture, so I would include them in the comic. And people would respond. So people would write in, ask me about, why should we meditate, or why do you bow? And then I'd ask the master, I'd look it up, and then I'd write the comic about that. And that kind of built the groundwork for the world that would become my graphic novel.
You want to go this way? I want to talk about your comic book, but should we like talk to Kurtis first, or like,
yes, Kurtis,
in your comic because we're talking about it? Because I'm really interested. Like after all your experience, then you know what I mean?
It's true. Enough about me, Kurtis. What do you think about my comic?
I was looking hard up too because look, I just to preview, guys. Look at this. I was like, ooh, look at that snake. He's imitating the animals, and it's so great. The first art that I started to practice was Pencak Silat back in 1997. So that's where I got my start. And there's also the animal styles, the elemental styles. So it's just really interesting to see, other arts perspective. We all have that, you know what I mean? But it's slightly different perspective. So it's just interesting to me to like dig into that. That was one of the things I really loved was the animal styles before moving on to other arts. So anyway, let's switch gears. Let's go to Kurtis. Kurtis, tell us, you're like, we kind of touched on how you guys met, but like, tell me more about that. Good morning, Dawn. Like how you started your martial art career, and then eventually leading to talking with Patrick. And then like, how did that relationship start? Like you guys just started talking and then.
Sure.
It's like.
Sure. Yeah, no. Yeah, it was interesting. I was a big fan of the magazine from the get, and it was, there's another Kung Fu magazine that shall not be named, but they had been around longer, but the authenticity and the burden of proof of what was in there was I think a different bar, and Kung Fu magazine was way higher as far as you knew you were getting legit martial artists, and so I was always a fan of that. I started training Kung Fu like in senior in high school. And then I did that for like a year, but it was just like the introduction kind of to the whole thing. And then I moved to San Francisco to go to art college. And while I was in art college, I would go into Chinatown and start training Kung Fu at a school called the YC Wong Kung Fu Studio. And the whole purpose of that was I love the Once Upon a Time in China movies with Jet Li.
Yes.
Yeah. and of course I like Drunken Master with Jackie Chan. And what I found out is that there was, both of them were about this character named Wong Fei Hong. And I looked up some things about it, and there was an article, and they said he was an actual guy and he had an actual style of kung fu called Honga. So I went ahead and I decided to go try and find it, and I was fortunate to find it in Chinatown, and started training Honga. I didn't know who the master was. I just knew it was in Chinatown, and he's Chinese, so I figured it's got to be authentic.
You still can't assume that these days.
Yeah.
Maybe 1997 or wait, when was that?
95, 95, I think.
Yeah, okay. I was gonna say about that time probably, but like the way things have gone now, it's like.
Oh yeah, and I as Patrick knows, my teachers, very established. I had no idea, but I lucked out basically.
Yeah. Isn't that nice? I feel the same way. Like, just stumbled upon my art, had no idea what I was getting myself into, had done no research, and ended up in the right place. I feel. Yeah.
And once you have been exposed to the authentic, to the real stuff, right? Not the YouTube senseis, but and I'm on YouTube, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
You can't go back. You've had a taste of the real thing, and I'm not just talking about kung fu, silat, or whatever. If you've seen real martial arts, it changes you,
right?
And so you cannot be fooled anymore.
Right.
So I was very fortunate. Studied with him for a long time. Moved back to Los Angeles, where I'm from. He introduced me to his friend named Raymond Wong, no relation. And I started studying some more styles. I studied a little bit of praying mantis, some northern kung fu, and a rare style called Do Ga, this Taoist system. So, which kind of funny anecdote, not to go too far into it, was an extremely rare style, and found out that there's a branch of it in Manila that does a little bit of it. Yeah. So it's funny how everything ties together, right? Real martial arts is real martial arts.
Because we were talking about the park in Manila, and it's like that's where it's like I think they call them the Brotherhood, the Five Brotherhood. I forget. But there's like kung fu is one of the arts that's practiced at the park, and a lot of the students will like take turns and they'll go around and they'll get like this well-rounded martial art education. And my art is there as well, the Calis Illustrissimo. So we were talking about the park, and I was like, oh, he knows like Master Tony, and like,
oh yeah,
like you even mentioned like the lineage that I'm in. You were like, oh yeah, Christopher Ricketts, and I'm like, oh my god, like that's my teacher's teacher.
Yeah, and I was blessed to meet him at one point, and I trained with him for a day, just like introduction to a friend, and real deal, and he had formed an organization called the Bakbakan, and that was but he was talk about martial arts renaissance man. I mean, he had done karate, he had done Kali, he had done and he had done kung fu. He was really adept at white crane kung fu, Fukinese white crane. So yeah. I mean, it's great stuff, and the way Patrick and I met, like Patrick was saying, is and I never told Patrick this. I hope it's okay. I'm saying this here.
Yeah, we like tea. I'm ready.
Well, Laurie was saying earlier, in the introduction, you look after the people that are close to you, let them know you care. My Sifu's like a parent to me in a lot of ways, because Sifu is literally composed of the word father teacher, So when his wife passed away, I got really concerned personally, because he'd been with her forever, and you just worry about the decline, and as esteemed as he is, he never got on Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, not by any negligence on their part. It's just life and timing, right, Patrick? So I had written a couple articles for Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine, and so Gene, the publisher, Gene Ching, said, "What's your next one?" I said, "If I got to do one, it's going to be for my Sifu." But the secret mission was I wanted to get him on the cover because I knew it would brighten his spirits.
Right.
That's the impact that magazine and Patrick's work on it had. That this grandmaster of the style. So I wrote an article, and we went down to the studio and took photos and stuff like that for it. And he was elated. He had a great time. But that's how Patrick and I met initially. But it really was COVID, I would say, that brought us together. We didn't really even talk much the first time we met.
Right. You were working.
Yeah.
And you, from what it sounds like, Kurtis, you were getting thrown around. So
yeah, exactly.
Like you might have seen Kurtis's like foot in the air.
Well, his Sifu was wise, and he brought a handful of students so they could rotate, and so we had chairs set aside so you can rest there. There's some ice,
Have some ice. Walk it off.
But yeah, Kurtis and I mean, if we had started, if the word comic book had come up, then the whole photo shoot would have collapsed because we would have been in the corner just discussing comic, the latest issue of whatever, of Shaolin Cowboy or something, you know. But the thing is that I would lay out, Gene being, a good friend, he would throw me Kurtis's articles and he would be like, okay, one of Gene's skill was to know like how to present a given article. And so he would, there were certain articles that he would slot for myself, and there was certain articles that he would slot for our other designer. And it would depend. Our other designer is Cantonese, so some of the articles that involved lots of translation would go to him.
Right.
Some of the articles, like I was in charge of the main cover article, so the articles that demanded like multiple pages and the big spreads would go to me. And so Kurtis's articles, especially because some of them had more of a modern sensibility to them, they would go into my queue. So I would recognize Kurtis's work because he would show up in the articles. I would see his name. He would also write for our website, right, kungfumagazine.com.
Mm-hmm.
And those articles were more general interest, more like pop culture oriented. And so that's where I started. Hey there, Atrocity Press. So that's when I started, really getting a picture of Kurtis's tastes in terms of like what he liked, that he was more than just another kung fu writer. He had tastes and opinions on comics and pop culture. And so that was just information I kept in the back of my head. But then when the COVID crisis happened, the magazine had to shelter in place. So we literally left the final issue of the magazine on the office, like 2 weeks before we were to send it to press. And at that point, it just ended, they couldn't, the paper crises started happening. The magazine could just not get that issue to press. And so they just decided, made the hard decision to move 100% online. And, that was one more print magazine that just had to come to a close. And so it was a wild time. But the thing was that it allowed me to look at what I really like to do, which was comics. And so I just 110% threw myself back into my comic projects, started doing a bunch of random, extra comics just, because I had extra time. I was up late at night.
Good morning,
and then I was like, oh, Kurtis likes comics. Let me send him a PDF of this latest Kung Fu.
Cool. That's the best when someone's like, hey, check this out. Look what I did. And you're like, what is this? Like, I love this. What are we doing with it? Like, let's do more.
Yeah, well, so it was a short 5-pager. It was basically a mythical kung fu Ghostbuster. He's a mythical hero called Zhang Q, which people may or may not recognize. But without going into the details of that particular character's legend, I just had him fight a bunch of Chinese hopping vampires. And it's just a crazy silence. Like, it was literally me just drawing and just making the story up as I went along. And then I was like, wait a minute, this is kind of fun. Let me add a few more panels and make it more readable. And then I just put together a PDF and just started sending it around as like, this is what I'm doing these days, guys.
Cool.
And Kurtis liked it. A few other folks liked it. And that kind of gave me the nod to kind of really, how would you say, put the pedal to the metal and just really go for it.
That's totally how it goes. Anytime, like for myself, because I never was into writing. I kind of went from martial arts to production. We were choreographing fight scenes for a small production company in Detroit. So like music videos and stuff like that. It's like I had this whole team of people too. So we knew people that did Kung Fu. We knew people that did Muay Thai. We knew people that did Jiu-Jitsu. So it's like whatever style they wanted, I knew somebody. Because, you've been around for a while. You know all the people, right? You've done all the things. So that was really a lot of fun. And then I started writing for them and they liked it. And then it was my big idea hit, the one I'm working on now. So it's like you let people read it. You're like, I don't know, everybody's going to hate it or think I'm stupid. And they're like, this is awesome. When is it coming out? And you're like, oh, now I actually have to do the thing, right? But same thing, like time to put the pedal to the metal. Let's move forward. So it's encouraging and scary at the same time. If you've never done independent comics or don't know where to start, there's a lot of creators that are still out there that are like, how do I do my first comic book? So it's great to have people like the three of us together, where it's like we're in that point where we're doing that, and we can kind of bounce ideas. But that's a whole nother show where we talk about like the ins and outs of creating comic books. I just want to nerd out about your comic books today because there's so much good stuff in there. So I'm going to show some art. Let's do that.
Yeah.
This is Patrick's. Let me go back here. So we are actually on the Kickstarter, people. So if you haven't seen any of the other shows, this is a Tiger's Tail volumes 1 and 2. They're kicking butt and taking names. Look at this. Their goal was 3,300. They're at 4,504. They have 7 days left. So that last 7 days, you usually get a ton of new backers. So you're at 75. You should probably break 100 easy. But I was just looking at this beautiful artwork. I'll have to come on and pledge both of you guys. I'll just do it not when I'm live because I did that once and that was dumb. Pops was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, So I don't want to scroll too far. Let's watch the video all together. I'll push that. Let's see.
Hi, I'm Lugo, author, illustrator, comic creator, and the art director for Kung Fu Magazine for more than 20 years. But I'm here to talk to you about a project that's really special to me. It's the middle graphic novel, A Tiger's Tale. Imagine the story of tigers and dragons and martial artists and monsters. So when I launched the campaign for A Tiger's Tale 1, I did not know what to expect, but it succeeded thanks to a group of passionate backers. It was also awarded the Make More Comics art grant that year and was later featured as part of an art gallery exhibit. And that's why I'm coming to Kickstarter, to cover production fees, printing, copy editing, things like that. Books completed, with the exception of a few pages I've set aside for color over the course of the campaign. This turned out to be a popular feature of Volume 1's campaign, so I thought I'd bring it back for Volume 2. I think it's going to be great fun for everyone. Hope you'll support the campaign. I'm very excited about it. Thanks for stopping by.
Woohoo! All right.
I had to include, a little 2 seconds of every Kung Fu magazine cover I worked on. And
I saw that. I was like, look at them all. Like, oh, so reminiscent. I was like, it's the bathroom wall in that studio I used to train at. I was like, it looked exactly like that. So tell us, elevator pitch us. What's the story of this book?
So if we're just going up to the second floor, I would say it's The Jungle Book Learns Kung Fu.
Mm-hmm.
If we're gonna go up to the penthouse suite, I would tell you how it's basically an encapsulation of all of the philosophical conversations I've had with so many masters not monsters.
That's my
Over the
book.
course of the year, right? So it's been a lot of it, so the whole concept of, there are these babies found in the forest raised by a tiger who decides, rather than having a snack, she adopts them, so that they can be a part of her kingdom as the queen of the jungle. And growing up, they learn everything they can from the forest, right? So they learn snake kung fu from the snakes. They learn crane kung fu from the cranes. They're absorbing wisdom from all the animals in the forest. The problem is the oldest tiger, Khan, grows jealous because he is just a tiger and can only learn tiger kung fu.
Right.
And so his jealousy inspires him to leave the kung fu forest and try and find a new master, a new style of being more than just a tiger. And doing that, he finds, he starts learning, dark arts that cause the world to fall out of balance. And years later, he has to reconcile with his human brothers, and together they have to actually, try and bring, a toxic world back into like alignment with nature, right? Trying to bring it back into the Tao, you could say.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, it's a story of family. It's a story of like brotherhood, but like sibling rivalry as well as familial loyalty, right? So it's kind of like the martial art themes, but dressed in a way so that the young 5-year-old who's taking their first Taekwondo class can read it and get something out of it. But then his parent can also sit down and read it and kind of get a little more of the underlying, themes. And then if their Sifu reads it, then hopefully the Sifu will be amused, because I've also inserted a few little tidbits that can create a whole lesson onto themselves if the Sifu wants to point out the origin of the I Ching Ching, or the origin of feng shui, or why people bow like this, right? So I've added those little lessons as like story beats within the bigger story.
That's really cool. It's to me, that's what good writing is. You know what I mean? It hits a lot of different levels. And there's always something more if you can read between the lines. You know what I mean? You find the next level. That's what I think makes stories really timeless as well. It's like they last, they survive. It's not just, a lot of the stories we get now are like pop culture, and they don't age well. You know what I mean? Like we look back at that like, no, let's not read that. But stuff like this, where it's about family and core values and has lessons, and everyone can take something from it. That on top of beautiful art, I'm sold.
That's great. I mean, like one thing I love to do with my art, and you can kind of see it here, is I like to layer it with little extra concepts. So like right in the center of this page, you can probably see the yin yang that I've hidden in the curls of the snake, just to kind of also, create another layer of observation, so like and then that's just one thing. Like there are other pages that are designed specifically around works of Renaissance art, or scenes that are designed based on woodblock prints from the Edo era, so like cool. I slept through a lot of my art history courses.
Don't we all? I mean, what do they honestly think?
and so adding those details into my comic is kind of my way for making up for that, by like in the time since I've learned. So I want to include some of that,
Like, I swear I'm paying you back. My art professor is happy up there in heaven. I want to go there, but this is just amazing work. Like, look.
And so some of those images are quite old, right? Some of them are like remastered images from the original comic strip, but then all the digital colors are like new. Those are just like fresh, me taking everything and just revitalizing it, so that it also like the comic also acts like a bit of a yearbook for like the different evolution of my artistic style. But I think I figured, and Kurtis could tell me if I did or not, but I think I figured out a way to keep it unified while also showing like some of the evolution in my storytelling.
Definitely. And what I love about Patrick's art in this, and also storytelling, is just the depth, right? And you know, he's able to straddle that line where you can see that it's accessible to younger readers, but there's a bit of an edge to it too. I mean, when he goes a little dark, it has that dark side of things that's more attractive to somebody, you know, older, you know. And I think that's the big thing is we all three of us are in martial arts. We know we know the people that are kind of faking it. We know the people that are just kind of have a cursory knowledge or trying to galvanize people, you know, because of that. But with Patrick, you can see the sincerity, and there's just so much depth. I mean, even in the back, there's a glossary with all the terminology and all those things. And, you know, I'm a Sifu, but I learn so much from Patrick sometimes about the culture. He doesn't know that. I usually just nod and go, oh yeah, that's a good. But, you know,
but that's, I mean, yeah, you can learn from anybody in any art and any level. And that's what's so fun is to be able to just this. And I think this is what's hard in martial arts. When you start to get good or you start to let the ego get inflated. And this is usually in the beginning of the career, right? People don't know anything. And then they get a little bit and then they start feeling good about themselves. And I know what I'm doing and I know this. But it's like, if you can turn that off and just listen, you know, and be in the moment, you can learn so much. Because if you encourage creativity in the art too, it's like a lot of times with my students, I'll just be like, okay, we're here. What would you do? How, you know, and to make them think. I don't always automatically give them the answer based off of their knowledge or based off of their body mechanics. They might come up with something that neither one of us have seen before. So it's like, just turn it off and listen, and you can find so much. And that's just really cool to sit back and be able to listen. Someone like Patrick, who has seen so many people and experience, and just to listen and about his experience with all of these other masters, I think would be really interesting. So Patrick, I want to hang out with you, even virtually, and just like hear stories, because that's where you get the really good tidbits. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I mean the door is always open, and the stories I could share. I mean the stories that I can share are wild enough. Not to mention the stories that I won't share. You know, because some, you know, some you gotta
drinks, and then those come out too.
Right. Well, you know, I mean, you got to keep your ninja secrets a little bit quiet, right? But
well, we're not going to share them online, right? We keep
exactly. Yeah. This is a 100% personal conversation that we're having here. So let me tell you about that time when, you know.
We're not going to do that, but but it's like, I'm sure there's lots of stories where you're like, oh, I saw them do this or that, or, you know, or it's like just really interesting.
I remember when one of my first jobs, right? One of the first masters that I was lucky to meet was Chen Chao Wang, right? He's the Grand Master of Chen style Tai Chi. And so who better to learn that there is, you know, martial application to Tai Chi than from the master of Tai Chi, right? And so, you know, once again, it's another photo shoot scenario where we took the masters, we went out to a local park because, you know, it's Tai Chi. We want to have the photos in the outdoors. We want to see the clouds. And then, you know, through the translation, he is insisting that he wants to demonstrate technique, right? He wants to really zoom in on the concept of fajing, which I think Kurtis can be the best person to really like distill what that means. But he wanted to show it. And so he had his assistant put him in an arm lock, but he wanted someone else to put his other arm in an arm lock. And I was the only other person there with arms. So I had to do it. And it lasted maybe 5 seconds, but you know, I had him locked, you know, wrist down here, elbow here, everything's all tucked. And I'm putting my weight into it. And he's like, stronger. So I'm just giving it my all. And I'm like, in this 1/2 a second, I just like my eyes shift to see that the cameraman is taking the shots, and then his arm just evaporates. Like literally, I was like, where does his arm go? And then the next second, it's reversed. My arm is behind me, my face is face down, and I was just like, I didn't even know how it happened until I reviewed the shots where the cameraman was just click, 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 and he caught the whole thing. And even then, you could see it happening, but you can't really see how it was that his arm just, his joints got a little extra soft and it just evaporated.
I love when they say, like, go a little harder, and then that's your indication, like, this is going to suck for me.
Yeah. Right, because all of that force that I was applying went right back,
Exactly. So I was like, I don't really want to. Like, I'm comfortable right here, thanks. Like, because I know it's going to hurt me worse the harder that I go.
Exactly. So, I mean, that kind of really, that was one of the key moments that made me, stop looking for my next Wing Chun teacher and start really paying attention more to Tai Chi and jumping on to any seminar we might have. Because once again, through that whole network, the magazine would host seminars, and these masters would come from China to California, and they're on their way to the Midwest to meet some of their other American students. So we'd host a seminar that weekend so that they could have a little extra money, and we could bring the people together. And then the employees were just free to come in on that Saturday. You want to come in on Saturday and learn Kung Fu, come on over.
I would totally be free. I don't care.
Exactly. So we'd go and I'd get tossed across the warehouse, but I'd absorb, a little bit more each time.
Yeah.
So Kurtis, can you explain to the listener what am I talking about when I say Fa Jing?
Yeah, so Fa Jing, right, is Mandarin and then in Cantonese Fa Jing. It's the idea of issuing force, right? So when you hear about one probably the most notable, when you hear about Bruce Lee doing like the 1-inch punch, it's not really a specific technique. It's the ability to transfer the force in the most economical fashion, in the most efficient fashion, and it has a lot to do with vibrating the force. So for instance, when you hit, if you're issuing a Geng or Jing, you actually vibrate, right? So you're hitting somebody multiple times. I heard somebody explain once that they were trying to create a basketball that was more pliable so kids wouldn't get injured, and they were testing on mannequins, and it did more damage because when it would hit, it would vibrate and shatter, And so so you can use it for a strike, you can use it to vibrate and kind of knock somebody off balance and all those things, and it's not brute force, right?
Right.
So for instance, like I never told Patrick this, but like my first experience issuing it was I went to Paris to visit my sister, and I went to the oldest martial arts academy in Paris, and they had all these different styles of martial arts, and I wanted to take Savate because I knew that's French. So there's a La Boxe Française, which is like the sport version. Yeah, exactly. Which is great. I don't know if you've ever seen how they bow. It's so cool. They take the boxing glove like fencing. They put the boxing glove over the heart, and then they put the arm out, and then you hit the gloves like a high five. And then they start boxing. It's really cool. So I was taking the class, and I was still fairly early in my martial arts career, and I was sparring with somebody. And every time the guy would throw a jab and a cross, it was the combination. So I knew after the jab, cross is coming.
Yeah.
So I figured when the cross comes, I'm gonna cut over the punch and just tag him. And I made one of the worst mistakes ever. I said, you know what? I don't want to hurt him because I'm a guest here, so I will relax. And not push so hard with my punch. I will relax so I don't hurt him.
No.
Yeah, and it was the exact opposite. So when I punched him in the face, and I felt it. My fist hit him in the face. It shook, and then it shook 3 more times. It went boom, 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 boom. And I saw his eyes go back, and he fell down. Right.
Like, I'm a guest here. I just knocked this guy out.
Yeah, and
good. I'm never coming back.
Oh yeah, and the instructor came over to me, and he was nicely speaking English for me, right?
Very nice.
Yeah, the professor, and he goes, how do you say? Can you spar more cooler and more relaxed? And I said, oh, I'm so sorry, professor. He goes, yes, because it is how do you say rude.
You're like, I'm so sorry. This was the exact opposite of what I thought was going to happen. Whoops.
Yeah. And so, but it's that idea of proper structure, timing, and not brute force is where you develop Ging, and you can manifest it in many ways. And of course, the most popular is that 1-inch punch. And so that's why when Patrick's talking about Chen Tai Chi and Chen Zhao Wang, you'll see them sometimes when they do Tai Chi, they'll actually like you'll see the body rattle. And that's the manifestation of that Ging. And it's one of those things like Chi. You can talk about it at length, but until you experience it or somebody does it to you, right, Patrick? Then you...
I mean, on that topic, I remember trying to learn one of the Chen style punches where it's like a hook punch, but you're also punching your own chest, right? There's this thing. So you're punching as hard backwards. And you know, once you get it, you could feel the whole coiling, right? Your whole core spirals when you do it. But just, you know, because I didn't learn this from Chen Xiao Wang. I learned it from his disciple, right? Ren Guanyi, who was the teacher of Lou Reed, you know, R.I.P.
Okay.
But so I took a seminar with him, and he would throw me around the office, and he would grab big, huge guy. You know, he didn't need kung fu to defend himself. He was a big guy, but he knew it and formidable. But so he would grab my wrist, and he would just yank him to show like how the elbow had to go back as hard as the fist went forward. But then that's how you kept your root. And just like nothing compares to feeling it. You know, there's like, I did it dozens of times. I brought home his video and I would try it. But then that weekend at the seminar, when he just grabbed me and just yanked, and then you could just feel that it's not just the fist, it's not just the arm. It's all the way down to your hips and your knees, and you know, that's
how
just...
we did as well. Like that just reminds me a lot of Penchak Silat. They do jurus, and it starts at the balls of your feet, so they're connecting with the ground, and it's like as you extend, the whole body contracts, right? So for us, it's more like how I want to say conscientious relaxation. So making sure you relax all the way until you punch, and then relax on the way back. But that also is your speed too, you know what I mean? Because if you're able to connect here and then something's coming in and you're relaxed, it's much easier to parry and to push things the other direction, or just react if you're relaxed, as opposed to this real stiff, you know, punching where your muscles are tense, you don't have that reaction time. But for the connection as well, we practice that too, where it's like the hitting, where it's like when you hit, you're also making connection. So you're connecting both sides of the body, the whole energy connection going forward, imagining like the chi moving through your body, coming up from the ground, you know, being able to focus all of that, you know, really helped me become a much better hitter, you know, a lot harder. Because again, I'm little, but I can hit freaking hard. And that's why, because with the proper mechanics. I thought it was really interesting in your issue, Kurtis, where they were talking about practicing stances. And I was cracking up about the guy practicing horse stance with his leg shaking. And I was like, we've all been there.
Yeah.
Freaking horse stance, you know? I was like, looking like, I was like,
I know that needs to be a T-shirt, Kurtis. That just needs to be huge on a shirt so that someone could be in the stance and have the shirt right there. But I mean, that's also why Kurtis and I, you know, are so simpatico, right? Like seeing his work and seeing like the thought that he's putting into those panels, and I might have talking tigers, and he has, you know, maybe an urban, I don't want to spoil anything, but maybe there's an urban vigilante going on, right? But like once you peel that away, you realize that we're trying to get at those same points that are
absolutely
that are more than just the fight.
100% see like the lesson, you know, like between the two factions coming together, and when you have them, you know, sparring in front of all their students, and like again, the ego when it comes in, you see that a lot in martial arts. Everybody's egos are clashing together, and then you can see, you know, the more subtle teachers who show by example. It's just, I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I thought the ending was great when he's like, "Here I am," and I was like, "Oh no!" But, you know, I was like, "That's very poignant," because how many times has someone done that at your school? Because I've seen that happen. You know what I mean? Where they're like, "You're not going to be able to blah, blah, blah." And you're like, okay.
It's definitely part of the culture. And the kind of harking you were talking about, kind of to wrap it back to the issuing force, right? And that kind of how And just so anybody watching understands, these are all roads to the same place. I mean, you can call it CL, you can call it Kung Fu.
Right.
There is no art that's superior. They're just
Correct.
languages, and you communicate things differently, but you're trying to communicate the same thing.
Right.
And like when Laurie's talking, I'm watching. I mean, you can see even in her most subtle movement, you can see the quality of her training, because I can see the angle here. I can see that you're not collapsing. I can see the coordination. But the thing about the power is, is like you're saying early on, you think you're the power. You get tough. You get a little. And martial arts usually are kind of messed up people, because there's a reason why you're trying to gain power. You're a person who's been weak or had issues. But the illusion is that you're the power. Is that, well, I did the punch. I did this. And when you do that, you actually constrict your muscles. You don't issue the proper force. When you realize what you're supposed to realize is that we're a conduit for the power. I happen to be witness to the power that's happening right then and there, but it's not me. The moment I put the me or the I or the ego in it, everything shuts down. But what I am is I'm aligned to the laws of physics. I'm aligned to gravity, to leverage, to all these things that are bigger than myself. So like you're saying, depending on your size, it doesn't matter, because who you're fighting isn't me. You're fighting me and the surface of the planet that I'm using as leverage. Mm-hmm. You're fighting me and gravity, right? Mm-hmm. And that's my backup, right? Mm-hmm. And as long as I remember that it's not me, things tend to work out. But the moment I think it's me and the ego comes in, then it is just me, you know? So that's the beauty of martial arts, you know, it's
right.
That ability. Yeah.
And it's such an interesting, we could have a whole conversation just on martial arts, because it's like, how do you prepare for a fight? You know, preparedness planning, like the mindset behind sparring. Is sparring necessary? I think it is. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will argue, you know, if depending on where they're going with their study, if sparring is necessary. But again, it just depends on what you're trying to do. But how do you know that your stuff will work if you haven't actually tried to use it in a fight? Mm-hmm. So that just boggles my mind, especially for women that are like, I don't like to spar. And I'm like, you need to go in that ring and get over yourself. You know what I mean? Like, turn off your brain and go do it. See what comes out. Because it's scary at first for a lot of people. But to me, it's like being able to see from my training what I actually absorbed. Because how many times do you have to repeat something before it's autonomous body movement? You know what I mean? Even if it's just footwork, getting out of the way, it is so important, especially for me, because we do weapons. So I can take a punch. I can't take a knife. Like, getting stabbed is just not generally a good idea. So, so that footwork is so important, you know, and then it becomes like, not just get out of the way, but how to use geometry and physics to reposition yourself as they're coming in just enough so they can't reach you, but you can reach them. That's hard. You know? So that what do they call that? Combat geometry. Mm-hmm. I think is such an interesting concept. And then being able to like read people as you're sparring. Like, a lot of times we're able to do this just because we're used to seeing people practice martial arts. So I know what a boxer stance looks like. I know what, a wrestler or a BJJ is going to come at me like. So once I see that, I understand how the fight's going to go and how I need to react. But what if they present you with nothing?
Yeah.
It's like, not sure. So being able to read people, like watching how they, because a lot of them will get into a certain stance before they throw, a punch, specifically like boxers and strikers. But it's just interesting to see, like, okay, he's going to set up that combo. Like you said, like he's going to jab cross, learning that pattern, and then messing with it. Being able to predict what's going to come, so that way you can have the advantage. I don't know. We could talk about martial arts. Let's talk about comic books.
Here's the thing, though. This is why I think comics and martial arts are so like interconnected, right? Because once like a couple of things, right? People look at martial arts, look at kung fu, and they see this external thing, and they lose sight unless they're involved heavily in it that the real conflict is internal. Right? It's not, you're not fighting against that imaginary foe.
I I
who's
love
going to
you
attack you in
guys.
the alley. You're fighting against your own fear, and you're fighting against your own bad habits, right? Your tendency to look at your phone instead of looking around, whatever.
Right.
So comics is kind of the opposite, because comics takes the internal and it puts it external, right? Like everything that, whether it's the facial expressions or the action lines or speed lines, right? The part of the language of comics is taking what's internal and externalizing it. So we could like literalize, these conflicts on a page. And then we look at martial arts and you think of how essential no matter the style, right? Every martial artist is going to have an opinion on timing and space, right? Essential, the range, your individual reach, or just how much space, are you fighting in an elevator or are you running down an alley? Time and space, always an issue, right? The timing when you're when you're sparring and you're trying to match that timing. And then, seeing Sealot in action and that unique snaky timing that's going on. That's a whole other, that's a whole other conversation. Yeah. But you think of comics is time equaling space, right? The amount of time it takes for your eye to go across that space, the amount of time it took for us to read, Kurtis's main character's stance work, and then, the little comic book tricks of not having panel borders, so you can kind of get the timelessness of it. It could be happening over 5 minutes. It could be happening over 3 hours, right? You don't know because those panel borders aren't there. So it's that whole thing where comics, time and space, very important. The people who are really good at comics are really good with how they manage time and space. Same with Kung Fu, right? So it's like, it's always the two just go back and forth constantly. They're just like on different, one's printed on a page and the other one's lived day to day, moment by moment.
Honestly, I think you can tie martial art concepts into your life in any aspect.
Thank you.
You really can. And I've heard this from my friends who just, I had a roommate in college. She was like, you do Sealot when you tie your shoes. And I was like, what do you, not even cognizant of what I'm doing. She's like, I can see when you're tying your shoes, your movement. And I'm like, that's bizarre to me, but okay. So once you start doing martial arts and walking that path, it just kind of all comes together. So for me, it's like, no matter how many times I fall down, or, with martial arts, it has taught me you're going to make mistakes until you figure it out, but you will figure it out as long as you continue to be open to a lesson, right? Same thing with comics, especially indie comics. We don't know what we're doing when we start, but guess what? I'm going to figure it out. It doesn't matter how many times I fall down, I'm going to learn, and I'm open to that lesson from everybody. You know what I mean? Everybody has something to teach me, even if it's the wrong thing to do. Don't do that. Do this. I'm like, okay. So just the confidence, I think, is huge, that it can teach you, like, it's okay. And it's a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah.
A lot of people take martial arts thinking, like, I'm going to be this badass and I'm going to, prove everybody wrong about me because I was a skinny person and I was weak, blah, blah, and I'm going to be a strong, powerful MMA fighter, blah, blah. Again, there's always going to be someone bigger, faster, and better than you for pretty much forever, until you're like 105. If you're 105, everybody else is bigger than you is probably dead. Okay. But there's still going to be someone younger than you too. You know what I mean? So it's like being open to that lesson is huge. I forgot where I was going with that. I just kind of lost my train of thought. Martial arts is great. People do it.
No, I mean, I
something so that way you can learn from it and apply it to your life.
Definitely. And that's the thing, is then you use it every day. I use it, traffic in LA is insane. A lot of road rage and stuff. I use Tai Chi all the time. I'll be getting on the freeway. I signal, right? That's me fainting. The person will speed up because they don't want me to come over, right? So instead of going into the ego where we go side by side, I throw my signal on, he speeds up, I take my foot off the gas, and he speeds up and does the work for me, and I go into the lane behind him, and because it's the ego's gone, because it's about getting over, not getting in front of him, I get over in no time,
Right.
And so that's when people say, have you used your martial arts? Every day.
All the time.
All the time. It becomes, it's no longer a style. it's Laurie, it's Patrick, it's Chris.
Right.
It's who we are. And it's really hard to articulate that to people. But once you have it, you have it, you know? So it's
Thank you, Don. I was like, I had a really poignant thing I was trying to get to, and the train just derailed. I was like, well, you know, martial arts is great.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I mean, this is the sort of thing that we love, you know, why we love doing the Comics Foo Show, you know, because we get to like wrangle as many of our friends and you know, acquaintances as we can and sit them down.
Volunteer to come on your show.
Yeah,
it's happening.
When your campaign, your next campaign starts, we have to. We're just gonna role reverse and have you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We could have we could pick another topic.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah. Awesome. No, but like, I mean, what was I gonna just say? Like, at the Comics Foo Show, we had another martial artist, right? Sifu Brian Cuddle, who called us in from Geneva, Switzerland.
Wow.
And like Kurtis, he's teaching Kung Fu online. And so I just got to sit back like a fly on the wall and just, you know, let them compare notes on like what it's like to be a Sifu. What was that first, you know, title, you know, reception like, and then just the whole, you know, practical applications. And the one thing that we all like came down to was like using Kung Fu, right, Kurtis? Using Kung Fu to catch that jar of jelly before it lands on the floor. And you know,
yeah, we've all done that. Isn't that fun? Like
Yeah.
your friends are all amazed when it happens too.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, boop, here you go. And they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, the Matrix.
yes, exactly. And just that whole thing, like what Kurtis was saying, you know, Kung Fu. I mean, I want to make a t-shirt about it. Kung Fu is catching that jar of jelly, you know, like it's you know, in the movies, it's you know, Mr. Miyagi caught the fly with the chopstick. Well, he never did it, but you know, that was the thing. There's always that measure. You know, we've seen it in all the Jackie Chan films, you know, take this dumpling from my chopsticks. You know, there's so many.
Kung Fu Panda, absolutely.
Exactly. And so it's just always like, you know, there's the which style is better conversation. Yeah. And then there's the can you take on someone taller than you conversation, right? And then there's the sure, right? And then
as a female, I kind of have an interesting perspective coming through martial arts for a long time, and how we are treated is different. Because a lot of times it's they don't think you're a good student, or they don't think you're worth their time until you've been there and you can prove it. But it's like, if you don't spend time with me and teach me the things, how am I gonna get as good as the male student? You know what I mean? But then it's almost like you're our mascot, and they used to put me with all the meatheads that came in. So those guys that would show up and be like, it's nothing. My teacher would be like, we don't really want this guy, so for his lesson, pair him with Laurie. And I'm like, that's not cool. So in other words, I was doing techniques on this big meathead, and he would feel like his ego deflate because here's this 17, 18-year-old girl who's throwing him around, and he would leave and never come back. So that was like my role in the school. I was like, really? Okay. But then you get like, you can't fight me. I'm bigger than you. And it's like, well, I could. Yeah. But they're like, prove it. I had some guy challenge me at a freaking Christian teenage, I was in high school. It was like the Rainbow Conference where we support love and Christianity. And it was like, fight me in the parking lot. And I was like, where are we right now? You know? But that's the kind of thing that we get. So that, you know, you can't possibly, you know, fight someone bigger than you. It's like, well, actually I can. But
see, like that's the guy who lost his own battle with himself, right? Like he lost that first fight already, you know.
Right.
And the question is whether he'll even get up off of the mat and realize that, oh man, I lost the battle, whatever, that morning, last year, 5 years ago, you know.
Yeah.
Well, the ones at the school wouldn't come back. And that's the hard line we walk as female martial artists, as teachers, because I want to teach my students things, but I can't. It's almost like you have to understand the male ego. And I'm not talking about you guys. I'm talking about students who are not at that place. You know what I mean? Because if they've been with me for a while, the male ego kind of goes out the window because they're like, Laurie knows all the good stuff. I want to know all the good stuff. I'm going to come train with Laurie, so I don't care how many times she knocks me down. I want to learn the good stuff. with those new students that are like, she knocked me down 12 times, my ego's deflated, I'm done. You just don't come back, and they just ghost. You know what I mean? I'm like, where are you? What happened? We were making progress, and they just don't come back. So it's a weird line, like I said, for us females, where it's like, we want to teach you the things, but we have to knock you down to teach you the things. Don't get upset that you get knocked down. Come back, and I'll teach you how to not get knocked down.
Well,
Right?
yeah, but teaching, it's kind of like, you know, there's people that are in it because they enjoy the art, and there's people in it for other reasons. You know,
Right.
I'm going to get the esteem. I'm going to be the big shot. And they never last, you know.
No.
And if you ever have a student, I mean, if you teach, you know, you've had students try and take you out sometimes. You know,
Why are you coming so hard right now?
Yeah, they just try and take your head off, and it's like, have you really thought this through? Like, what is the solution? So you knock me out in front of the class. Am I going to turn around and give you the lease to the school? And
Right.
do you really want to pay these bills? You know, but that idea of being smaller, like I'm not a big guy, you know, and it's kind of that idea.
Yeah.
That's I think this is sometimes where the macho American kind of attitude of, oh, the bigger they are, the harder they falls flat, because no, the bigger they are, the harder they hit, you know.
Yeah.
And what you have to learn is that you are smaller. How can you make this work for you?
Right.
You know, you're not going to stand toe to toe. You're not going to clash. That's reality, you know.
Right.
But it's embracing those things that would be your weakness and turning it to your advantage is a thing. And the scary thing is, if you have big guys figure out what little people have to figure out to be a great martial artist, that's scary. That's scary. Fortunately, a lot of times the bigger guys still rely on their weight, on their force. But
Right.
if they trained as hard as little people that have a hard time, oh, game over. I mean, size does make a difference, and anybody that says different is kidding themselves.
Right.
You know?
Do you guys also use like psychological warfare when you fight?
Oh yeah, all the time.
All right, because I never really hear too much about the other. We usually get that far, but of course that's what we do. We just mess with people all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And people are like, "Oh, we're gonna learn, you know, kata." I'm like, "No, we're not learning kata." I'm like, "We're gonna fight dirty because we want to survive." And it's like, you know, either pretending that you know nothing or not presenting any kind of, like, we don't, our stand-up position is just like, you know what I mean? So you can't tell what art that I practice because when we stand off, it's not there. Stuff like that, or like just going absolutely crazy so they think you're crazy, or striking them in ways like not really to do damage but to piss them off so they lose control. There's just so many ways to control the fight psychologically. It's interesting to me too to like implement that, you know, before you even start the fight, to start controlling the fight. You know?
Oh, definitely. It's being the smart. It's just being the smart fighting. You know, it's like, and it's. I remember one time I was sparring with a friend of mine who's a Sifu who did Taekwondo, and he did another Kung Fu style. And
I like you. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, exactly. Knowing the whole Yeah, and when you're with another martial artist that's at that same level that understands the psychological game, you understand.
Yeah.
And I remember my friend, you know, I don't like to spar with people unless I know them because things can go out of control. But my friend is another martial arts instructor. After like a couple of years, he's like, he really wanted to spar. So, okay. Then he threw a punch at me and I blocked and I transferred the punch. And then I kicked him from underneath when he didn't see it. And then we're sparring. He does the same move. I block, I transfer, I kick him in the stomach, right? So now we both know there's a pattern established because we both are strategists. So the third time he throws the punch, I block, I transfer, and I don't kick. And we just stand there staring at each other because we both know what's about to happen. And then we just both bust up laughing because he knew I was going to kick. He was going to do something bad. I don't know, but I knew he was going to do something. And so just as friends, it's like that martial arts camaraderie. I block, I don't kick. And we just stare at each other and just started busting up laughing because it's that mindset.
Right, because you're both like playing chess at that point, trying to think, you know, 2 and 3 moves ahead. Like he does this, I do that, you do this, I do that. And then I'm going to do this, right? Yeah. And then it's fun to like learn the pattern and then break the pattern.
Oh,
like you know, if I'm constantly blocking this way or I'm parrying this way, and then that same punch comes in, like I'm just going to punch instead. You know, you can go around it because I already know what's coming and I already know what the reaction is going to be. So then you start messing with the pattern.
Oh, yeah. And you can program people. You can, the setup is okay. You program to do this and then you do the variation, you know, and if you don't see it, There's some one of the most badass, and I'll say the word badass things I ever heard somebody say about martial arts, and I absolutely love it, was my Sifu. He had a friend come. This guy was a professor, and we were talking to him, and he also did kung fu. He did some style of kung fu we didn't know. My Sifu says he won't tell me what style he does. He goes, but he wore these big Coke bottle glasses, and one time he showed up to my teacher's school covered in blood, and his glasses were. And my Sifu goes, "Was it older guy? What happened?" He goes, "I don't know. Some guy tried to mug me. He knocked my glasses off, and I just hit him." He goes, "But I don't know why I feel so wet." And my Sifu goes, "You got blood all over you." I mean, he must have pummeled this guy to death. So we went out drinking tea with him, and in a lot of, you break bread. That's where everybody lets their guard down. So
exactly.
So I'm talking to him, and he talks about strategy, and it's just ice cold. His eyes kind of glaze over, and he goes. If you defeat somebody and they see what maneuver you used to defeat them, they will go back and they will train, and they'll train against that move. He goes, if you defeat somebody and they do not know what happened, they just all of a sudden they were knocked out. He goes, there's no hope. They can't come back from it. They can't train because they don't know what happened. And he looks at me, he gazes me across the table. It's amazing. He goes, then Kurtis, you have not defeated somebody's body, but you have defeated their soul, and there is no coming back from that. And it's just like, it's like, oh my God, that's cold,
So will we be reading that line in maybe issue 2 of Shadow Ghost?
Maybe somewhere in there.
Yeah, you're gonna see that show up in my comic book. What are you talking about?
Definitely, that will appear in the book.
Let's all add that line in our comics, and then that'll be the secret kung fu crossover.
Yeah.
I love doing that stuff. Like, I'm part of this other group. I affectionately call them the Zombie Bros. Mm-hmm. So my comic book, Death is Broken. It's like a Western apocalypse, but when your body dies, your soul doesn't leave, right? So myself and these other 2 creators, we have this little group where we all have like zombie genre comics. And so in his last Brandon, in his last comic, there's a panel where there's these kids sitting in the backseat of the car and they're reading comic books. And guess what they're reading? Path of the Pale Rider. And our other one, they're reading Rays. And then in my issue number 2 that just came out, there's a bulletin board of bounties, and they're on there.
Wow, that's so cool.
And they were like really funny. They're like, I want an eye patch and I want a mustache. So my artist gave one of them this like big Yosemite Sam mustache. It's so funny. So I was like, we could totally do that. Marco, my artist who draws everything, he's also working on another book called Mauka, which just funded. Congratulations to Mauka.
Oh yeah, that was called the one in Oahu, in Hawaii.
Yeah. King Eddie, he's a real interesting guy. Did MMA fighting, and like he's super humble, and like knows some really big names in comics and in martial arts, which is crazy. Just like casually name drops these people. I'm like, back up. Did you just say? He was like, yeah, he's a buddy of mine. I used to blah blah, and I'm like, okay, that was very casual. No one else knows who that person is, but I do. Yeah. But it's just so funny. Like, there's this character named, what is his name? Carlos. And I was like, I have in my issue 3, I wrote someone that was very similar named Carl. And I was like, Carl is now Carlos. So we're going to take this character from his comic and like, it'll be like the multiverse of Carlos. So it's like he can show up and all that.
That's great.
So it's like, we need to do that too in a subtle way, where it's like your comic and my comic, and we just have like a running joke that goes between all 3. Yeah. So if people like tune in, they read your comic, my comic, and Patrick's comic, they're like, wait a minute, they said the thing. And I'm like, that's the thing.
And isn't that the great thing about indie comics? There's no committee. It's just, hey, we talk.
Yeah.
I want to do this. Done.
Right. And it's done. Right.
No bureaucracy, and that's what's so fun about this stuff,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Oh, I was watching your faces when my commercial was playing. I was laughing when I get run over by the car.
I know. I was like,
what?
I was like, she did that to herself? Like,
that is commitment.
That is commitment.
That's from working in a production company and understanding stunts, right?
Yeah, that shocked the hell out of me. I was like, okay, nice trailer, and then whoa.
Yeah, so we do a short film with every issue that we release. So we have this like whole metaverse where it's like there's the comic, there's short films, and then on the back cover of every comic, instead of an ad, we put a riddle. So you can solve the riddle and it will send you like somewhere else, or you might get to like interact with the character or find a web page or a secret YouTube video, right? So it's just kind of fun that we have all these other things. And since I've done stunts for production, I like putting them into movies. Like we did a riot. In that first one, you kind of saw clips where we were doing your shooting, and I've done some drone works. We're going to get the drone out for this next one. Next one's going to be a horror short film.
Nice.
So have everybody sitting on the edge of their seat like, no, don't do it, you know.
That is so cool.
Sadly, I don't have too many martial art friends that can hang with me, so I can't do a ton of martial art fighting stunts in my videos yet. I'm talking to you, Taki Kabir. You better come down for the next one so we can choreograph some stuff. Like we've done some fun things together. Like we did a whole short film called Catfishing. We had like gun disarms, and I did a wall run in a stairwell, and we did an extended knife fight with lots of things and some flying takedowns, and it was a lot of fun. I ran him over with a car in that one, so that's how I learned how to film it.
Wow, that's great. I love like utilizing multimedia in projects.
Yeah,
you know.
I mean, the story is so big. It was like, how do we experience some of the other things that it's like maybe one issue might touch on it, but it's such a cool moment. It's like, I want to do more of that so people can experience it. So there's a lot of conspiracy theories built into my world. So it's just fun to like involve the fans too, so they can be a part of it. It's like when I show the short film, they can watch and see themselves, which is kind of a cool moment. So yeah, it's something that we do. So I'm excited to start the next one.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, I think the whole idea of like the comic being more of a window into a bigger world is just, you know, like indie creators are in the best position to make that happen. Right. For the reasons that Kurtis, you know, mentioned earlier, like no committee, we can decide for ourselves. You know, like last year, Kurtis's comic had not yet premiered, but that didn't stop him from having his characters appear in a music video. You know?
That's awesome.
Yeah,
on location in Chinatown, San Francisco, shot in the actual school he trained in. You know, like
so cool.
Yeah, it's thanks, Patrick.
Okay. I feel like we've been talking so much martial arts. I haven't given your comic books any time.
Comic books. I forgot about that.
This is like a secret episode of the Comics Foo show. We're just talking Comics Foo right now.
I know. It's like I knew this was gonna happen where I'm like, we're gonna go off the rails and talk about martial arts for a lot of time. But these are excellent comics. Can we let's watch the video, guys, before we do anything else, because we're gonna make sure we get it.
Okay, thank you. As a kid, I loved Kung Fu movies. So I went to Chinatown, trained with a wise teacher, and became a Kung Fu master. Sounds simple, right? Not really. My journey, like the study of Kung Fu, was as arduous as it was rewarding, filled with as many secrets as revelations and as much heartache as triumph. It's a defining moment in my life, and while I began studying Kung Fu to learn how to fight, what I discovered was a way to live. Martial arts never came easy to me. I was far from talented and even farther from being the chosen one. It was only through years of tenacious perseverance that I was able to make steady progress. And so I was surprised when my master told me that I should teach Kung Fu and share the art outside of Chinatown. I did just that and taught Kung Fu to my own students for 20 years. I always wanted to do more to share the art of Kung Fu with others, but was limited by only being able to teach those within my immediate area. What about the rest of the world? Then one day, I had one of the deepest insights about Kung Fu. I realized that the punches, kicks, throws, and myriad of martial maneuvers are merely the delivery system for the true essence of Kung Fu, philosophy and way of life. Having worked for years as a professional artist and storyteller in film, animation, video games, and comic books, I realized that I could draw upon this unique skill set to share my passion for Kung Fu with the greater world. And so I created Shadow Ghost, a Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master. The first issue is created entirely by myself, from story and art to colors and lettering. Every panel is filled with unprecedented accuracy in its depiction of Kung Fu by a comic book creator who knows from firsthand experience what it means to be a Kung Fu master. Those martial arts coming-of-age story about a young man whose search for the truth about a legendary hero leads him to study Kung Fu, and through a twist of fate, becomes part of the legend himself. For the first time in comic book history, you can immerse yourself further in each issue with Kung Fu Skills technology, powered by Tiger Crane Kung Fu. Scan the QR code at the back of the comic and follow an exclusive link to an online instructional video where I teach you Kung Fu techniques featured in this series. With Kung Fu Skills technology, you can do more than just read about the Shadoko saga. You can become a part of it. The first issue is completely finished and ready for print. All that's needed is for you to make a pledge of support so that we can fund the printing of the first issue. Together, we can share the wisdom of Kung Fu with the greater world. Shadow Ghost is the story of Kung Fu. It's about the people, the art, the culture, and the philosophy. It's my story and the story of those that I've learned from, taught, fought, and loved. Join me and become part of the vibrant legacy in a place and time where we might not be the chosen one, but where we can make a choice to be something bigger and greater than just ourselves. I'm Sifu Kurtis Fujita, and this is Shadow Ghost, the Kung Fu comic by a Kung Fu master.
Hey, does mine have the QR? I want to do martial arts with you over the internet.
Yeah, that's the only thing that hasn't been completed yet is I'm going to shoot the videos that are going to be tied to the QR codes. So that's
so cool. And it just turned on a light bulb for me. Something I can do.
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. And the one thing I was explaining earlier is you'll be learning the same techniques as the main character. So you'll be progressing as a martial artist along with the character in the book from issue to issue. So that's why the first issue of stances, that's the first thing that you learn. So yeah.
Oh, the stances. Does it show it? Oh wait. Sorry, I scroll too fast for the viewers.
Oh, no,
sorry,
okay.
guys. Let me show you some of the art in this book. I'll go back to the top.
Yeah.
Amazing. I'm blown away that you guys are not only the writers, you're the artists. You do the whole thing yourselves. Letter. That's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah, I do not do my own art. I hire people to do that because I feel like if I were to draw it, it would look terrible. Look at this guy.
Well, I mean, the thing is like, Kurtis is just, every choice he's making is made to kind of help communicate, his thesis, right? His lessons. Like even if you look at like the color choices, there's the practical side of making sure the characters are distinct, making sure the characters pop out from the background. But then, you look at like why is the Kung Fu master all in green up there, right. And there's reasoning behind that, and so it's just like, once again, it's that's why we're just constantly going back and forth because, I'll look at his stuff and I'll be like, did you do this for X reason? And he'll be like, yeah. And for Y reason. And I'll be like, oh, okay. And then he'll look at my stuff and he'll be like, you did this for X reason. And I'll be like, yes, you got it, finally. And then, we just keep going. So like each page, I think that's why like the lettering and the coloring, like we want to have our say on each aspect of it because there's a chance to communicate a little bit more of what we're trying to say with each one of the each element. And then even with each reward tier, so it's not just like the Kung Fu skills, like it's not just, oh, this is another cool story. There's more going on.
Right. We didn't even look at your rewards. We got talking about martial arts.
Yeah.
But that's something like, okay, so let's do Shadow Ghost because we're here. So $6, you get a digital copy, which is amazing. You get the name in the backer section and the Kung Fu Skills video access. Oh,
definitely. And if you want, if you scroll down, I have a visual for each of the reward tiers, so it's even easier.
Okay, let me get there.
Yeah.
Beautiful cover.
Thank you.
I am so excited to learn more about this guy. All right, so here we go. Shadow Ghost #1 PDF, name in the backer section. I will be there. And then Kung Fu Skills video access, which is amazing. That's like the most impressive thing I would think. I haven't seen anybody do that before. Shadow Ghost #1, $15. Get you a physical copy and a PDF and the video access, which is amazing. Shadow Ghost one, a Dean Zachary cover, which is Shadow Ghost himself.
Yeah.
PDF and video access to the Kung Fu lessons, which boggles my mind. Let's see, $28 gets you the Shadow Ghost Special Edition, the Stephen Butler cover. Woohoo, 16 extra pages of art. Yeah. And then all the extras. Retailer pack, gotta have it. 10 copies, yep.
Yep.
Shadow Ghost #1, all editions. There we go. So we get all the variants and all the PDFs and all of the things, plus the kitchen sink. No kitchen sink, actually. Stretch goals. Are we there yet? Didn't you get? Yeah, you're unlocked. Yeah, you're 5710.
Yeah.
Whew.
So the first one, I don't know if it loads there, but I wanted to kind of take the idea of the backers page and take it to a different place. So it's actually a video. It's a credit sequence, like the end of a Japanese anime or TV show, where I'll release a video online with all the backers' names and a little bit of motion graphics that you can kind of have bragging rights and share with your friends and family that you're part of the thing. Yeah. So that was unlocked. Yeah. And we just unlocked the second one, which is all the really loose concept art and things like that. We cleared that the other day. So that's the next reward tier. And it's all digital, so it can go to all the backers, everybody.
That's cool. I was thinking about that too. Like, I really would like my first stretch goal to go to everybody. How do I do that? And that's what I was like, I'm going to have a giant PDF tier. Like, all my friends, hint, hint, can have PDFs of their first copies go to people. And so everybody gets to read your book too. That'd be fun.
Definitely.
There's you doing awesome martial arts with the intense face. I understand that 100%. When I'm fighting and people are like, ooh, she has the intense face. And I'm like, yeah, that's the thing,
No, definitely.
Photographed at Kung Fu Magazine Studios.
Exactly. By the best.
Oh, is that? That's funny.
The thing about that look, and I don't know if you ever get this, Laurie or Patrick, but I go, well, I can't believe you do this stuff. You seem so nice. And what they don't understand is I'm able to be nice and not have that hard exterior because I have this in my back pocket. That's actually what preserves me from acting nice and being pleasant, because I know I have this. If not, I would have to put on a rough exterior,
All about balance, right? So for everything, how destructive I can be, I can also be that level of creative. You know what I mean? So it's all about that yin and yang, and then, destructive versus creative forces in your life. So I agree with you. Like, the two most deadly people that I personally know, their exterior is so pleasant and humble and modest, just giving and loving. And it's like, these people could rip you to shreds. Like, it just amazes me. It's like, you would never see them coming, but that's the balance. You know what I mean? That's the balance. So it's just funny because I have this space too, when you watch some videos of me actually fighting or like stick fighting where it's like I'm hunting, and it's like, it just totally changes your face and your demeanor and how your body moves. It's fun. People are like, oh no. It happens. Definitely. Intense face. Yep. So the book is completed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Oh, and if you scroll all the way down, you'll notice that there's a tiger's tail right there as one of the recommended.
Oh yeah, look.
So I mean, even Kickstarter knows that we're like a team effort. Like
That's
we just
cool.
bounce off of each other.
Definitely. I mean, in some ways, I feel like we're companion pieces to each other. You kind of get both sides of the coin of the martial arts storytelling. So that's what's
right.
That's like Patrick and I kind of paired up.
It's the internal and the external, but you decide which is which.
Exactly.
I love it. I love that you guys come on together. It's like Patrick talks great about Kurtis talks great about Patrick, and I'm just like, I love this dynamic that you guys have. It's just so natural, and it's like you understand each other's abilities and strengths. So it's really cool to see the two of you together, even interviewing together. Is a lot of fun. Let me see here. Let's go back to I'll push all the buttons. The button. Present, share screen. Let's go back to a tiger's tail because I want to look at some of the rewards here. Go stream. All right. Do you have? Yeah, you have the same thing. I saw it because I was like, don't look at it yet. All right. So yours. How do you pronounce this? Hongbao.
Yeah. So
Okay.
Kurtis,
Uh-huh.
Sifu Kurtis, can you explain to the listening viewers what Hongbao means?
So yeah. See,
it sounds better when it's.
Is this what you do, Patrick? You're like, yeah, I don't feel like talking. Kurtis, Sifu Kurtis.
So we key off of each other. No, Hongbao is the red envelope given during holidays, and especially Chinese and Lunar New Year, and usually it has some type of prosperous message on it, and there's money inside, and so you give it. It's also in Kung Fu a big thing where you give this to your Sifu. There's actually a ceremony where you get kind of part of the school. You'll actually present this as like a ritual to your teacher. And so what's so great is Patrick's branding is like so on point, because Kung Fu and all martial arts, and Laurie knows this, each martial art has its own culture, right? It's a culture and a subculture. It's the culture of the place that's from, and then there's a subculture of the art. And so what I love about Patrick is like the experience, up and down, is the Kung Fu and is the Chinese experience. And so that idea that, you're going to go ahead and give him, you're going to present this red envelope to him and he in turn will present this back to you, is just completely ties into the culture and everything.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
And then, so here's the thing, right? Like I spent years doing single page comics for Kung Fu magazines, explicitly like I only have one page. How can I convey a lesson and like move my story forward? So, my book is a little bit bigger than the typical comic that is appearing on Kickstarter. It's 100-pager. So that means I'm asking for a little bit more, but I wanted to my real goal is to make 100 backers, right?
You weren't asking for that much more.
Right. So
3,300 of a goal for a volume 1 and 2 graphic novel. I don't know, people, if that's not a huge goal that's because he's doing all the art himself. So it sounds like to me you're not paying yourself for a lot of the time that you've put into these 60 pages and 100 pages. That's a
I mean, that time has been spent and well spent. So the money is really towards, the production, paying an editor to make sure that I don't have any typos, like the things that are going to make it perfect. So so if someone isn't ready to throw down $30 for like volume 2 or $20 for volume 1, they could just throw down $5 and get a quick little comic card like the one I showed there. That'll just have a little taste of what Tiger's Tail is about at the most basic level. But then if they want to go deeper, and here, like, once again, for me, the campaign is not just about the comic, right? It's about the conversations. So these are just all of the episodes that Kurtis and I have filmed with amazing martial artists, talented illustrators, writers of incredible renown who have taken some time out, and many of them have done martial arts, but that's not their main thing. Grant Balfour is a tabloid journalist. He's the guy who was in charge of the Mothman sightings as printed in the Weekly World News. But he's been to China. He does Tai Chi. So we kind of got to talk a little bit about both of those.
That's amazing. That's another thing I really love about producing comics and being a creator. Especially in indie, you kind of have to promote yourself, because a lot of your dollars are being spent on production, or in my case, like paying artists to produce, fabulous art so people can enjoy your comic. And so a lot of times I'm doing all my marketing and advertising myself. But I love it because I get to meet new people. I get to go on all sorts of shows. Like, you make new connections, and like you said, you get to have these conversations with people like maybe you would have never talked to these people except because you're producing this comic. So it's just really fun to see the community grow, to find new audiences, to find new people to talk to about the comic, and to like spread the excitement. People are excited when you're passionate about something. It's contagious. So to like I love talking about my story with someone who I've never talked to about it before. That's the best. Because then the excitement is contagious. So
and I don't know about for you, but I almost learned more about my story promoting it. Like I know it from one standpoint, but I really streamline and I start to really understand what is the crux of what I'm doing because I'm having to explain it. And so I actually learn more about my own project that way, which is kind of funny. So
that's true. And I mean, like when I first started, I didn't know what a elevator pitch was. You know what I mean? So to be able to like give synopsis and something exciting about your story in like a few sentences, it's like, how do you do that? So it takes some time, but practice makes perfect, or practice at least goes towards perfect, right? So that's what we do. So it's just like martial arts. You practice punching something, 50,000 times, pitching your story, same thing. Practice, practice, practice. But then it gets better every time,
Oh,
being
totally.
able to explain, your concept and the meaning behind it and where it's going and all that good stuff. So let's talk about some rewards before we run out of time.
Yeah, keep going.
So,
all right, so the $5 gets you the Happy Lunar New Year comic card, which is really cool. A lot of times,
and I'll send you the card so that you can keep it or you can give it to someone else. It's a physical reward. I want to make sure that they get something from it.
Right.
So that's
because a lot of times $5 is like a digital reward, and people they don't get anything.
Right. No. I want to be able to give them something. That because it means that much to me that they joined the campaign.
That's cool.
And then
$10, of course, the digital Tiger Sale. So again, people, it's not a 24-page black and white comic. This is $10 to get you a volume 1 60-page graphic novel digitally. That's
90 pages now.
90 pages now?
Not volume 1 is 90 pages because we reached enough stretch goals to expand it. And then volume 2 is 100 pages, but we are actually, it's now 104 pages because we reached one of our recent stretch goals. And if we reach our next stretch goal, it's going to be 112 pages. I want to just deliver more.
I know. That's so cool to be like, now I have some extra money to throw back into the project to enhance your experience, people. That's awesome. It's not like, Patrick is pocketing the money.
No, I mean,
it's like creators where they're just like, I made my goal, great.
Yeah. No, I mean, and then like, it's important to me, like, I have a lot of double page spreads in my comic, and I lavish so much time on the art that I want the digital edition to be like a widescreen experience, right? So I want you to be able to just take in like some of these vistas, and some of them are like historically accurate. Like I've done the research to make sure Shaolin Temple looks like Shaolin Temple. But then, when we go to visit the Jade Emperor and the Celestial Palace, well, that's when I can get to be a little bit crazy and just, really flex my my visionary imagination. I liked it. Well, someone described it as that way, and I was like, I'm gonna keep that one.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome. Let me keep going. All right. So then $20 gets you volumes 1 and 2, digital version in landscape mode. So again, you get to see those beautiful double page artwork that Patrick is talking about.
And that's like close to 200 pages right there with those volumes combined, because I'll throw a few extras,
Yeah. So
and then here are the hard copies.
Gets you the hard copy, volume 1. So again, it has additional pages. This is 90 pages, but it's, like you said, it's additional at this point, but it's the 6 5/8 by 10 1/4 trade paperback size with the perfect bound spine. So these are bigger than your typical comic books, people. So these are bigger, thicker, with the glue bound. This looks really nice. That'll be a hefty book.
It is. And you know what was amazing? For the volume 1, I had my backers help me design the cover. Like I designed over the course of the campaign, I designed like 3 different possible covers. And then I worked with the backers and was like, what do you want to see on the cover? And so it kind of came together as a piece of art that I'm really proud of. The challenge was, how do I do that again for volume 2, right? So volume 2 had to be able to sit next to volume 1 and look good. And yet so many of the decisions for volume 1 were made by other people that it became a real challenge to find what the perfect cover would be. But I think I got it. I'm pretty pleased with what it looks like.
That's great. It's beautiful. It cracks me up. My artist is so critical of his own work, or I'm constantly saying stuff like that to you. He's like, it's okay. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, look at this masterpiece. And he's like, things are blowing up. And he's just like, meh. And I'm like, oh my God. So when people are like, I think I got it, I'm like, you are boggling my mind, sir. That is beautiful. I think it speaks exactly what it's supposed to for your comic. I mean, tiger's tail and she's creeping towards you and you have calligraphy in the background, water, rippling from her feet, as in like her footsteps are going to ripple off into space and cause things. I'm not being as eloquent as I usually am. It's like the butterfly effect. You know what I mean? Her actions will cause what happens in the story.
I'll take that to mean that you're wowed by the cover.
I am. If you can't get anything else from what I just said, because I'm fangirling on the art. All right, so $60. Ooh, deluxe sketch variant. I will draw the graphic novel cover expressly for you, something that will give you the best reading experience. To do this, I'll get in touch with you for an idea of what you like. That's amazing. So for $60 on volume 2, you get an actual cover specifically to cater to what you want. That's incredible for $60.
Yeah, I really want I want people to read this, right? And I think I have I've always had this knack of being able to recommend the right comic for someone who's just getting into comics.
Yeah.
Right. So I kind of want to try and use that to give an image that will kind of help the reader kind of enter the story more effectively. So if you look at that image, right, I have 2 different examples of different sketches and how I kind of tried to tailor each sketch to kind of communicate what I think that reader will enjoy looking out for or picking up on over the course of the story. And so it's just another way to deepen the experience and to make more of a connection, right? For me, it's really about connecting with each backer. And I feel so happy when backers come back, right? Backers who backed volume 1 are coming back and they're just like, I just want volume 2, and that's great. But then a few of them are like, no, I bought the sketch variant for volume 1 and I want the sketch variant for volume 2 because they have to match.
Right.
And then there are those who are just like, I want the sketch variant for 1 and 2. And so that's exciting. But not as exciting as this tier. This is my epic unlock your wuxia warrior tier. So I did this last year as kind of an experiment and people loved it. Basically, I'll take their likeness and then I'll kind of survey what their thoughts are on martial arts. What's their favorite kung fu movie? Do they practice martial arts? Have they ever practiced martial arts? What's their preferred weapon of combat? And then I'll take that information and then use 20 plus years of experience to really dial in on what the stance should look like. What's this personality of this war? What would be their kung fu persona if they became a kung fu character? And then it's a custom commission.
Yeah.
I send them a gallery print as well as the comic. And then I send them the digital file so that if they want to have it printed on a t-shirt or as a shower curtain, we could make that happen.
Shower curtain? Yes.
Yeah.
I want it in my guest bedroom so when everybody walks in, they see me rah!
So one victory. Then here's something that I'm really proud of. If you look at it's a really small illustration, but that illustration that's to the farthest to the left is a person doing Tai Chi, but with chi blasts and stuff.
Yeah.
So that backer is an old friend of mine, and as he suffered a pretty bad spinal injury because he's in the tech industry, right? Too much typing.
Yeah.
Over the course of the campaign, he got so inspired that he started a qigong routine every day, and so he really ended up. It's been a year now, and every day he's doing his martial arts. He found it and he loved it, and he's converted, and part of that was the process of doing this commission for him. He's known that I've worked for Kung Fu Tai Chi magazine for years, but it was when we were like meeting and talking about like what his vision is for, like, you know, what would be his weapon of choice, and he said, I want it to be chi, you know, and I was like, all right, I got you covered, you know.
Yeah,
and
you're like, say less, I got you.
yeah, and so he's got that print up on his wall in his apartment in San Francisco, and every day now he's like in great shape, he's recovered, he's doing his qigong daily, and that's like, that is the victory, you know, like,
yeah, absolutely.
getting the money
your
to
comic book inspires a lifelong journey of healing.
Yeah,
that's mind-blowing to me. I will never achieve that because my story doesn't do that. So yes, absolutely, respect to you that you can do that with your art. That's
excellent.
Amazing.
I mean, I think it's like what Kurtis says about it's not me, right? It's the art coming through me and then connecting with these backers. Yeah. So, you know, last year we had 6 wuxia warriors, and I have such reverence for each of them. On this campaign, I opened it up for 8 slots, right? So I can have 8 immortal wuxia warriors if they want to join us. And so far we've got 4.
Halfway there. Yeah.
So we're halfway there, and it's just so much. I know it's going to be so fun to connect with each one of these backers and really, you know, create a work of art just for them.
What's this? Okay, Shaolin sticker sheet. That looks fun.
Yeah, these are some of these are scenes from the comic, and some of these are just other works that I've worked, and, you know, stickers and ninja stars. I'm so proud of this.
Everybody loves ninja stars. How can you?
So these are rubber, and they're safe. I've been begging my girlfriend to throw them at my face just so that I could prove that that you won't get hurt. And she's like, I'm not gonna throw a ninja star at you. So
do it. I don't want to see it.
I know. So I'm begging her. I'm like, come on, I want to film it. Just aim for my eye. It'll be fine. You know. And she's like, no, you're crazy. Do not do this for your campaign. You know? But there's still 7 days left. I might get that video done after all.
Yeah. Be like, random update. Took a ninja star to the face. See what happens.
I took it to my third eye. It's so
no. You're like, it loosens something up, and I can see the future now.
Yeah. And then stickers, you know, I know a lot of folks love them. I love them too. So it's been a lot of fun to have those available. And then, this is such a. I could devote a whole episode to just talking about like what went on in designing that poster, because it's, you know, eventually it'll be part of an activity.
What's he doing? He's causing problems, I'm sure. That's amazing. Look at that. Aww. First you see the nice baby, and then you see the one wrestling with the tiger cub. Nice.
Yeah, yin and yang. Always.
There you go. Dang. Ultra rare Grandmaster 2 edition of a Tiger's Tail Light 1. Wow.
And I got that one. That's
my, wow.
Yeah, that's my favorite. I got that one. But I'll let Patrick. The art's great on the cover.
Okay, so here's the thing. When I first was deciding to do a Kickstarter, they said, find an artist to do an alternate cover. It's what you do, you know? And so I was thinking, and I'm like, who do I ask? I know some people, you know, who have reputations, like what would be the right cover? And just in thinking of what I wanted to do with the Tiger's Tail, it really became a thing of, I need to find someone who could do traditional Chinese painting, you know, because that was like the one missing component to the whole thing, was to really have a traditional piece created. And so I reached out and made some, you know, tried to reach out, and the person who I wanted to reach, you know, how do I say this? I wanted to shoot for the stars.
Yeah.
And so I asked who would be the person that would be the coolest person to have on the cover. And I thought of Grandmaster Tujin Shang, right? He's a world-renowned Taoist Kung Fu master who's there's no way to say it delicately. He is renowned for his iron crotch Kung Fu.
Oh, that that guy.
The man can pull a 27-foot truck
With his
using
parts.
only. Yes, I was there. I've seen it. It's on film. I could share the YouTube video with you when we're off the air.
Yeah.
Not only
I don't
can
think
he
I'll play
do
that on live. No.
yeah, I mean, not only can he do that, he can chop a steel pipe with his hands. He could, chop giant ice blocks.
Wow.
But then he's also like an incredible musician and a master painter. I mean, some of these
it's
paintings.
all about the balance.
Yes,
right?
yes, and the thing is that he could
you have to balance with that being this creative.
exactly. And speaking of balance, he can literally balance on top of eggs while he paints, right? Like you could set out a carton of eggs, he will stand on them. Maybe one of them might crack, but he could just stand there and do a whole painting while standing on eggs. Like that's the kind of master he is.
Wow.
Mind blowing. And so I reached out and I told him, like, he knew that I drew art. Right. We have shared art. I illustrated a Kung Fu themed children's book a number of years ago, and I gave him a copy and he gave me a copy of his art book. So even though, we had the language barrier, his English is not very good. We connected on the level of art. And so when I reached out to him and told him what I wanted to do, he said yes. He's like, here, these are 3 paintings of tigers. Take your pick. Which one would you like? And then he said, also, yeah, just like that. He was just like, no big deal. And then he's like, also, I want you to use this other painting. And he gave me this amazing painting of Shaolin monks doing the I Ching Cheng, which once again we'll turn to Kurtis for the education on that one. Sifu Kurtis, can you tell us the history of the I Ching Cheng when we're done?
Yeah. Well, I mean, just a quick. It's essentially one of the earliest physical activity exercises from the Shaolin Temple. That health benefits and just world renowned. So, very, very historic, very important stuff.
Yeah, it's like the foundational workout for Kung Fu, right? It's like
Right.
It sits in mythology as like the first training regiment, we could say.
Right.
And so he gave me this painting that I had to use. So I included it in the back of volume 1 with a little article that talks about the master and talks about the history of that particular routine. And it was so inspiring that I ended up adding a couple of extra pages to the story.
Wow.
Just to spotlight the creation of that routine. Like my characters were going to Shaolin Temple anyway.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? Let me just add a couple of more pages that actually shows the routine so that when they get to the end of the book, now they can have the historical context for what they read about in the story. So, I mean, that's just such an amazing get. And part of the deal was that for every book that I printed out with his cover, I would send him a copy as well. So we only printed a very limited run of them. And I have a handful left. And they're just like these amazing things because there's that crazy story connected to him.
Totally.
Cool. That's a story. That's a whole thing onto itself. You know what I mean? We're, like I said, time was going to go by real quick. Guess where we are, guys? We're at 2 hours and 3 minutes. So we got to wrap it up. But people, if you're watching this replay, go support these beautiful, awesome, kick-ass books. We got martial arts. We got a lesson. There's more to read. There's A Tiger's Tale. And then, of course, Shadow Ghost. And these are the beginnings of something really great that's coming. I can tell.
Thank you.
Both Kurtis and Patrick, amazing talent in between the two of you, between martial arts, knowledge, history, skill, and art. I'm really impressed with you guys, and I can't wait to hang out with you more and just talk shop or talk comics or whatever comes up. I feel like we are connected.
Absolutely, definitely. Thank you so much, Laurie.
Yeah,
thank you so much, Laurie. I so look forward to really getting into the nitty gritty of those not suitable for public broadcast kung fu tales that we all have.
I can't wait. I got so many things I want to talk about and questions I want to ask you. And oh man. So it's always fun because I know I have those from my art. So I'm like, what kind of tea do you have to spill?
We're going to have a lot of fun.
Right. Dawn, I want to say thank you for watching. Thanks for coming on, lady. We had a great time with you here for, all of your good questions and then your participation. So thank you for everybody that came. Usually everybody checks in the mornings. We got Ronnie, Chris, hello. Jason was here. Quentin was here. Max was here. So I love saying hi to all these people. We got a little into the martial arts discussion. I was ignoring the chat for a little bit. Sorry.
This turned out to be a secret episode of the Comics Foo Show. We just
see. It was like we're the same.
Yeah, the crossover book.
Yes, with our third co-host, right?
Yeah, exactly. I fit right in. I love getting the friend of show badge, so I'll definitely come onto your guys' show whenever. If you need a guest or a guest cancels, just call me.
We'll do. We might have to go with friend of the show Ninja Stars or something just to stay on theme, but I think you'll be good with that.
Yeah, I like Ninja Stars.
There you go.
My kids do too, which is a problem. Put that down. No, it's like, Mommy, they're like, Mommy, can we play with your weapons? I'm like, just the wooden ones, okay?
Yeah. Wait until you're older.
There you go.
Right. I was like, I'll teach you, but you got to have that attention span because there's Mommy and then there's Guru. They're two different things, right? So, exactly. All right, let's wrap it up and play some commercials. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Go support Indie Comics. These are both live right now. The links are in the comments. Don't forget, I love you all. Go kiss your loved ones because life is short. I'm going to kick us all to the back and we'll watch some really cool ads. So talk to you all later. Catch you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Love ya.
In a world where creatures of myth and legend exist, a covert task force is charged with keeping humanity safe from supernatural threats. And when young Nancy Moon stumbles into the eternal battle between good and evil, she finds... Oh my God, will you shut up? What's happening? Agent Beckett here. Aren't you tired of stuff like that? Want something different? Roll the tape. Whoops. Sorry about that. That's a song I'm writing for my ex. Okay, here we go. Yeah, that's more like it. Alrighty. Welcome to the world of the mythicals. We have it all. Monsters. Magic. Government agents. He's the strong silent type. This guy. Ugh, gross, dude. Get some kind of cream or something. Lots of 90s style action. Pew pew pew. And that strong female lead alluded to earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Not to mention a dashing field commander with a great sense of fashion. Look at those glasses. South River Studios presents The Mythicals, Issue 1. Buy it, if you dare. Ugh, will you can it already? How'd you get free? Now beat it before I lose my cool. So what are you waiting for? Sign up today. Like right now.
Sign up today on Indiegogo.
How do you end this thing? How do you put the there was the brakes on this bus? I forgot.
Jazz hands. Jazz hands are great.
Comic Books for Kids provides comic books to kids in hospitals and cancer centers across the U.S. It's a place where we can all work together to make sure every child has a comic book. 100% of all proceeds go towards the kids. It's about making a difference, and while they're in the hospital, allowing them to fly like a superhero, battle dragons, or rescue teddy bears. We are in every state in the country and now support over 160 hospitals. Every month, we add more.
Visit CB4